Hi, everybody. I am Kevin Ioli from Yahoo Sports. And if you didn't recognize this face before, I know after a couple of weeks ago you recognize it because this is the man who took out Shogun Rua in an impressive performance, a spectacular win for Mr. Anthony Smith. How are you, Anthony?
I'm doing good.
So, have you come down off the high that a victory over the Hall of Famer Shogun Rua provided?
Yeah. It's been a wild ride ever since then. I do a pretty good job of not getting too up and too down in this game. It's such a roller coaster sometimes. So I've definitely enjoyed this one though.
For you guys, it's all about making as much money as possible in as short a time period as possible because you have short careers, and so you have to kind of market these kind of wins, right? You beat a Hall of Famer, you've beaten in back-to-back fights now, ex UFC light heavyweight champions. You got to kind of take advantage of that when you're hot, don't you?
You do, you absolutely do, and I think that's kind of been the challenge that I've had here lately is letting those wins marinate because I've been moving along so fast. The Rashad thing kind of came and went pretty quickly because we went right into the Shogun fight, and the Shogun fight we were able to kind of let it fester a little bit and kind of live in that world for a little while, and here we are moving right along to Volkan Oezdemir.
Yeah, so you're going to fight Volkan Oezdemir, really a big knockout puncher. So that should be a lights out fight. Um, let me ask you this though, before we get to him, the difference in you at middleweight and light heavyweight seems to be stark. Is it just because you're so drained going to middleweight? You're a big guy, what 6'4", 6'5",
6'4".
6'4". So what's going on at middleweight that you're not the same guy that you seem to be at light heavyweight?
I think that a lot of it is directly related to the weight cut, and I think that there's kind of a perfect storm going on here a little bit. I think that I'm moving into my physical prime. I just turned 30, so things are really clicking there. I think my mental strength and abilities are matching my physical abilities at this point. And without cutting all that weight, I can really spend an entire training camp focusing on getting better. So I'm making astronomical gains in my skill set from one fight to the next because I'm not cutting 35 or 40 pounds. The training camp is really, truly about getting better and building my skill set, and not so much about just making weight. So I think that those two things together are just kind of creating this perfect storm that's going on, and I think just a little bit of time, it's amazing the things that you can do when you're happy and you're not miserable.
And, that Santos fight you fought in, what was it, Bellum? I think it was
Yeah.
that you fought him. It was fight of the night, terrific fight. So you obviously showed very well. Any regrets that you took it from the standpoint that it gave you a loss where, hey, if you didn't have to do that, you might, if the fight was at light heavyweight, maybe a different outcome.
Honestly, no, I don't think that without the Santos fight, I would have made the move. I think that was the turning point when I was after that fight was over and the dust settled and we were leaving the country. I knew that I'd never see 185 pounds again.
Mm,
That I just couldn't do it anymore, and I can't do it to the people around me.
right.
My coaches, we're cutting weight 12, 15 hours completely overnight. My manager's in there with me the whole time. My coaches are there. Like, how ready are they the next day? For these fights, and how prepared are they mentally?
Right.
They're just as drained. They're not sleeping. They're in and out of the saunas. They're stressing, wondering, excuse me, if I'm going to make it. It's not good on anybody. No one's at 100% after that. So, but I don't think I would have made the move had I won the fight or not had to go through what I went through. So I think everything happens for a reason.
Well, let's talk specifically about the Santos fight because I want to get into the little controversy going around with the weigh-ins and when they should be. But when you got to Brazil, let's say the week of the fight, what did you weigh? How much did you have to cut? And then the night before, like, so you get done with all your press responsibilities and everything. The night before, how much did you have to cut until the Friday morning weigh-in?
I think I checked in at 210, and the night before the weigh-ins, I was probably 197, 198.
So it's amazing. So you dropped 13 pounds in that period while you're doing open workouts and media responsibilities. And how difficult is that? Because I'm sure you must feel miserable as you're doing it, but you got to smile for the fans, you got to
Hmm.
cooperate with the media and
Right,
all that kind of stuff. And so it's like a part of your job that's very important, but it's not the ultimate job of getting the weight off and being ready to fight. How
right.
tough is that mentally on a guy that you know it's going to be hard to get to 185?
It's exhausting. It's so stressful because it's every minute that you're doing something, not losing weight, you're stressing about it. And it's hard to focus on anything else. And that's how the whole training camp up to that point is. It's not about, here's what Tiago's good at. Here's what I want to do. I need to focus. I want to drill on this 100 times a day for the next 6 weeks. It's like, oh man, I haven't broke 210. I got to break 210. I got to get to 205 by this day. I got to get to 200 if I can. It's terrible, and that's been the biggest difference. I've never enjoyed fight week before until the last two fights.
Right.
Fight week's actually kind of fun.
Yeah.
It can actually be a real enjoyable experience if you don't have anything looming over your head like a dark cloud. So it's really, I enjoy the time with the media now. I'm eating. I can go out with my coaches and we can have decent meals, and it's night and day difference for me.
When you got in there against Rashad Evans, I remarked, I mean, it looked like you were in two different weight classes. I mean, you were so much bigger than he was. Did you feel like as you got in there when you looked at across at Rashad, like, boy, you're in trouble because of the
Yeah,
physical difference between us?
I did. As soon as we were able to touch each other and get into that grappling kind of situation with the wrestling, I was blown away at how I was just able to kind of do whatever I wanted to do and put him where I wanted to put him. And I kind of felt the same way with Shogun a little bit. I just feel so much bigger than these guys, and I just feeling pretty silly that I was worried about making this move so long ago because I wasn't going to be big enough.
Wow, that's yeah. I mean, you might be one of the biggest light heavyweights out there. I mean, what I know, John Jones is your height, and I think he's 220 or so in between.
Yeah.
So not nearly as big as you are.
Yeah, it's crazy that I was so worried about it. Like I remember, seeing guys like Glover fight or even Forrest and just remarking on how big they were. And then I don't hang out with a lot of UFC fighters. I hang out with the guys that are on my team, and other than that, I'm just a simple Midwest guy and hanging out with my friends and neighbors. So it's not like I see these guys a lot. So
Right.
then I finally see Glover in person. The first thing he says is, "Man, you're big." So it's he's thinking the same thing, and I'm realizing that these guys aren't nearly as big as I thought they were.
Yeah, no doubt. What do you think is the best time for the weigh-ins? When Dana's saying, well, we want to take them back to the afternoons. The commission's moved them early because give you more time. My thought on it is always been, why not do a Thursday weigh-in? Give you guys 48 hours to rehydrate before the fight, and get the weight off on Thursday, and then you can fight more healthy and have 48 hours to do it. What's your thought on when the appropriate time would be to weigh in?
To be honest with you, I don't think that the focus needs to be on the time. I think the focus needs to be on how do we eliminate the dangerous types of weight cuts.
Yeah.
Because the time essentially doesn't matter. If you're going to miss weight, you're going to miss weight. If you move it up in the morning, essentially all you have to do is move your weight cutting protocol back a little bit. It shouldn't change anything.
Right.
But I think that when you change something and it's kind of new and shiny for a little while, of course you're going to have people that say, well, as soon as they moved them, things started going a lot better. Well, you
Right.
move them back, people are going to say the exact same thing. It's going to be new and shiny, and everyone's going to be able to move on and feel like that they are doing, like that the UFC did them a favor. So now things are going great, right? So
Right.
I don't think the time really matters. I think the guys that are going to miss are going to miss. I think that we really need to. I think they need to look at guys like me and see the product that I'm able to bring to the table
Right.
now. And imagine if we had an entire roster of guys that felt like I do every time I fight now. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
the level of competition, the level of fights that we would have, it would bring. I'm telling you, if every guy in the UFC just moved up a weight class and stopped cutting weight, the product that the UFC could bring to the table would be nowhere. It'd be nowhere close to where it is now. It would.
Wow.
It would shock you at how good some of these guys really could be, and they're not.
Well, I have 2 points that I want to get your reaction to. Number one, I think that when we talk about the weight cuts and whatever the time is, like just, for you to rehydrate and be able to have as much water on the brain. I've unfortunately been ringside in boxing for 7 fighter deaths, and I think virtually every one of them, except maybe one, the guy was dehydrated at some point, during his training, during his weight cut. So, to me, like if the longer you give the fighters to rehydrate, then the less of a chance that, that you have to make it. But the other issue that I wonder if exists, weight cutting wise, is having education about all these things, because guys always pick the lowest weight that they can possibly make, right? And I know they try to do it at summits and everything, but don't you think you need to have ongoing education, and that the coaches, there's people that there's not a camp for coaches, right? People just come off the street and they start coaching, and they,
Yes.
what is their expertise of how to properly medically cut weight?
To your first point, I agree. I think that if I had to choose a time, I would choose the mornings. You can get it out of the way. You don't spend an entire day dehydrated. It closes that gap down a little bit. And the more time you have, the better. And I think that's just the black and white point
Right,
of it.
exactly.
And the education, I don't know. I think fighters were so ignorant sometimes because we know exactly how dangerous it is. But I do think that educating the people that are supporting the fighters, the people that are kind of helping make those decisions, absolutely makes a lot of sense. But I think that the more guys that move up and are able to do well, your Cowboy Cerrone's, me and whoever else, I think we just need to be louder
Right.
and say, like, listen, this isn't hard. These guys aren't that much bigger. It's not that big of a deal. And any advantage I was gaining by being the larger man at 185, I was immediately losing and being depleted and feeling like dog shit all the time. So, I mean, essentially it was, if you weighed the pros and cons, I was losing out much more than I was gaining.
Yeah, that was it. Now you're going to gain with a win in your next fight. Volkan Oezdemir, who fought Daniel Cormier at UFC 220 earlier this year. He had been on a roll before that. And, I don't want to say I discount the loss to Cormier, because Cormier is one of the all-time greats. But, yeah, you say Cormier is one of the greatest fighters in the history of MMA. And, Oezdemir was handling everybody else pretty good. When he fought Misha Serkinov, I picked Serkinov. I thought, boy, Serkinov is really a good, fighter. And he handled him, went out there, and what did he get Jimmy Manuwa in, like 45 seconds, something like that. What does a win over a guy like that has that much power and has done what he's done do for Anthony Smith?
A win over Volkan Oezdemir gives Anthony Smith the title shot, and I don't think that there's anybody that can. At this point, you can't argue that.
Mm-hmm.
Gustafsson at this point is, who knows what he's doing? He's out indefinitely or whatever. He's injured, or he's kind of picking and choosing his way through fights that he wants, and it's starting to kind of turn out that the fans in the UFC aren't really liking that much these days. So, in DC, who knows what DC's doing? I don't know what his plan is. I don't think anybody knows, but I truly don't believe that DC's coming back down to 205. That's just my opinion, but I just don't see a world where that happens. So, whether it's against Gus or it's against DC, I think a win over Volkan puts me in a title shot.
And then you got the guy out there looming who looms even over DC, which would be Johnny Bones Jones. To me, I call Demetrius Johnson the greatest because he's actually active in fighting. But I think when you look at what John Jones has accomplished, I think, he is the physically greatest fighter who's ever fought. And he's beaten guys in their primes. Do you ever think, you're a professional athlete, so maybe you think different than me that's just a schlub sitting on the sidelines. But do you look at like a guy like John Jones? I wonder how I would match up with him. And I wonder how I would compete and how I would compare with a guy that people think is the greatest ever.
Yeah. I would. At this point, we need John Jones to come back. We do. And me personally, I need John Jones to come back because, like you said, John Jones is always that guy looming. So I hope that whatever he's got going on works out. But I'd love to. In a perfect world, who knows? Maybe I beat Oezdemir. John Jones is. Suspension isn't nearly as bad as everyone thinks it's going to be. Gustafsson's kind of out there floating around. DC gives the title up, and here's me and John Jones for the vacant title.
What do you think, Anthony? So DC, if he doesn't fight at light heavyweight is going to be because he's worried about the Brock Lesnar fight. Johnny coming back is on suspension. What about these guys? Conor McGregor is going to get a huge fight here fairly soon. He just came off a situation that in April when it happened, Dana White was not so happy. Now he says he's not even going to punish him. What do you think about giving these guys second, third, fourth chances just because they sell tickets? I mean, is that fair, and is it right to make you and all the other UFC fighters who follow the rules, who don't break the rules, have to deal with these guys who have repeatedly done that?
When it comes to Conor, I kind of give him a little bit of a pass. I don't think that Conor was trying to hurt anybody. I don't. I think that he was trying to scare Khabib or stick up for his friend or whatever. And I don't know that personally, but just from just how things come out, I don't think that Conor meant for anybody to get hurt. I think that he was trying to stick up for his friend, and it got a little bit too far. But once you're committed to something, you're kind of all in. You can't back out of it at that point. So I give him a little bit of a pass there, and then he's done a lot. He's done a lot for the UFC, so I'm not surprised that he gets to a get out of jail free card. As far as Brock, that just blows me away. Just to fail a drug test and then come back in for a title shot just is asinine to me. I just can't believe that that's happening. I also can't believe that Stipe isn't getting an immediate rematch after breaking the record for title defenses in the heavyweight division and how long. I mean, look how exciting the heavyweight division is now. I think that's directly related to Stipe kind of making everybody else have to level up, and that barn burner of a fight he had with Francis Ngannou. I mean, if Stipe doesn't deserve a rematch, then how does anybody else deserve immediate rematches? You know what I mean? Just for him to carry that torch for so long, I think the DC owes that to Stipe, but that with that Brock Lesnar thing coming in, I don't think that that's fair to the other heavyweights. I don't think it's fair to Stipe. I think that's crazy. And who knows what John Jones is doing, man? You can't even, who even knows? It's hard to even answer the questions about John Jones anymore because he just shoots himself in the foot. So I don't know. It's crazy.
Well, I agree with you. Stipe deserves a rematch. But that being said, I mean, if you were sitting there and they said to you, hey, you could fight Stipe and make, a couple $100,000. You could fight Brock Lesnar and make $5 million. You're probably going to make the same choice that DC made, right?
Yeah, and I don't think that that's on DC. I think that that's a person that's much higher.
Yeah, of course, I get that. Yeah,
you know what I mean. So I get the promotion factor of it. I get the pay-per-view buys. I get that it's good for everybody's pockets. I totally understand that. But I just think you're setting a really bad precedent with, and even I don't have anything against Darren Till, but it's kind of along the same lines. Like, you miss weight, you can still get a title shot. Like, that's crazy. I didn't know that was kind of stuff was happening.
Right.
Or you can fail a drug test and still get a title shot. That's crazy. So I think down the road that, these examples are going to be brought up in other situations and they're not going to have a good answer for it.
Let's wrap up with this. I'm just going to throw a wild card at you. I was looking earlier at your UFC bio, and you said if you didn't find MMA, you may not be here. Like, what do you mean by that? You grew up a farm boy in the Midwest. What do you mean you wouldn't be here?
I was just going down the wrong path. I was in a lot of trouble all the time. I was just living super fast and doing some crazy stuff, and I was in and out of trouble. I mean, I'm telling you, it was crazy for a long time. I had that car accident that I almost died in from being an idiot. So just making really bad decisions and living really recklessly. I wouldn't say that I had a death wish, but I also wasn't that concerned with it either way. So, once I found MMA, kind of gave me a direction and at least a goal, and something to kind of work towards. And
sure,
through that, I was able to kind of get my life together and met my fiance and had some kids, and and here we are living like upstanding citizens.
Well, that's awesome, man. Thank God for MMA for saving you and giving you a chance to make a great life for your family. Anthony, it's been a pleasure for me to talk to you. Good luck against Volkan Oezdemir, and hopefully we'll see you in a title fight soon.
Sounds good to me, man. Thanks a lot for the time.
Thanks, my friend. Be well.